Welcome back, everyone. Day 11 of study time with KP. I'm KP, and we only have 10 days left until exams. I know everybody should be studying, revising, and practicing, and I'm just here to help you along that journey. And once you're revising, I hope you're using the aid of my algorithm cheat sheet, which will help you go much faster and get more time to practice. So today we'll be doing problem solving and program design, which is one of those tricky area for most students. So I hope that with this practice, we will get more comfortable with the questions and understand better the concepts that are taught under this section of the syllabus. So let's go. First question. State whether the following statements are true or false. A. An algorithm can be written as a pseudocode. Is that true or false? I would say it is true because we know that algorithm is either, there are two types of algorithm. There is a pseudocode or flowchart. B. An example of a pseudocode is a flowchart. What do you think? If you said false, then the answer is correct. False, because we know that flowchart and pseudocode are types of algorithms. So one is not an example of the other. Next one, flowcharts use English type sentences. Flowcharts use English type sentences. That would be false. And why? Because flowchart uses symbols for input, processing, and output, and pseudocode is actually one that uses English type sentences. Flowcharts use specific symbols. That is true. Moving right along, a flowchart can be developed into an algorithm. A flowchart can be developed into an algorithm. Is that true or false? Think about it. I would say false because it's already an algorithm, right? It's already a type of algorithm. Continue. Explain the difference between a variable and a constant. Can you explain the difference between a variable and a constant? What is a variable? Think about it for a moment. Now, if you said that a variables are areas of storage whose values can change during processing, and while values in constants never change. So that would be what I think the difference is. Let's put that in. Variables are areas of storage whose values can change during, and that is important, during the algorithm or during while values in constants never changes. So remember that is very important. Next question. State the most suitable data type and variable name for each of the following. Now remember, we said that what is a variable? Variable is basically a storage area where you put a value in, and it usually has a data type. So the data type tells you what kind of value you're going to store in the variable. So if you had a variable for the current year, what would you call that? We could call it current year, or we could call it year. And the data type we would give it, right? So let us declare it. We will give it the data type. So the variable name would be so we would call it year, and we would give it the data type. Year are numbers, so we'll give it the data type integer. Next one, someone's height. You know that someone's height is usually in feet or inches, and it might not be a whole number. And if you should convert it to decimal, you know, it would not always be a whole number. So we want to think of a data type that could represent that. So we could call the variable height, and the data type that we would give that would be real. Next one, a mobile phone number. A mobile phone number usually consists of numbers, and you may have the dash and the brackets in there. So I would say a good data type for mobile number would be a string, and we could call that variable mobile phone. Next one, is it day or night? Is it day or night? That sounds to me like a check. You want a yes or no answer to that, or true or false. So I would call the variable, probably call it day. So the check would be, is it day? So it would be is day. And I would give it the type Boolean, which is the data type that allows you to check to put true or false. Next one, your blood type. Your blood type is usually A, B, O. So that sounds to me that it's more of a character. So we call it blood type, and we give the variable data type. We could call it a character. Are you following so far? These are the key data types that you would have covered in your revision, and again, it will be included in my cheat sheet. Let's move on. Next question. Let's zoom out a little for this one. Let's continue. Consider the following algorithms. So we see there's a pseudocode written on the left and one written on the right. And the question is, write an example from each algorithm that represents a variable. So let's make this a little bit bigger so you can see. So write an example for each algorithm that represents a variable. So we look at each side. So we'll start with the left side. And remember, we're saying that variables are areas of storage. Variables are areas of storage. So, and it stores a value. They store values in there. So if we look at the left, what are we seeing? Where are we seeing these values? So we look and we see there is a variable here called blue that's storing 4. One called met, with the value of 5. There is an input. Input is where you receive a value from the user and you put the value in num, right? So when we look at it, any one of these would have been a good answer. You have blue, met, and num, right? And remember, when you're revising, it's not the exam, you're not in the exam as yet. So when you get stuck, try to go back to your notes and try to refresh yourself, try to identify which areas you're having a challenge with, and try to do some more revision on that area and practice. So let's continue again. So we look at the next one. We're looking at the other side, which is the right side. Where do we see the variables? Now we see the while, there's a while loop here. So there is actually, there's a while loop here. So there's a variable word. It's doing a comparison here. Word, getting a value. You're getting an input from the user. Same word here. So I would say another variable from the left, from the right hand side would be word. All right, so remember, any one of these would have been the right answer from the left, and from the right, the answer would be word. All right. Next one, constant. Constant, remember, constant never changes, always remain the same with throughout the algorithm. So let's look at it. So again, when we see a constant, it usually uses the keyword const or constant in front of it, and I am not seeing any example. Any example in either one of the algorithm. So I would say no constant is present. Keywords. Remember, now we're dealing with algorithms, so there are many keywords, right? We have things like input. It's a keyword, right? Display is a keyword, right? Keywords and while, input. So I would put as my answer. So we also have keywords such as begin, end. There's so many. So keywords here, you have begin, can be begin, input, display, end, and from the other side, we have while, input again. If is one of them, if then else, and it's while and while. So all those are keywords, right? So the question asks you for an example from each side, so you just make sure that you get one from each side of each pseudocode. The next question is on, we did an example for arithmetic operators. And again, we know what arithmetic operators are. Those are the operators that allow you to perform calculations, right? So we are looking for things like plus, addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. So we're going to look for those things. So if we look at the left hand side, we see where the equal sign is being used. No. We see where, yes, we have multiplication. We have multiplication, we have addition, we have subtraction. On the left hand side, if you're not seeing it clearly, let me show you them. Right? We see multiplication, addition, subtraction. And on the right hand side, what are we seeing? With which arithmetic operator are we seeing? I don't see any calculation taking place on the right, so I wouldn't put any from the right. All right. Boolean operator. Boolean operators, that's an unusual term to use, but Boolean operator. And back again, we're at part 5. So Boolean operator, and by Boolean operator, I assume it is talking about and, or, and not. And those operators are called logical operators. And by looking at these two pseudocode, I'm not seeing any example of those. So I would say they are none. They are non-present. None or no operator. None. Present. Moving right along. State whether the left algorithm contains any of the following. Right? Is there any loop in the left algorithm? Do we see any loop? And we know loops are for, while, repeat, until. Do we see any? No. So there are no loops in the left algorithm. No. So we say no. Conditional statement, that is if then else. Do we see any conditional statements on the left? No. There are none. Say none. Sequential statements, and sequential statement just means it's executed one after the other, and we would say yes. State whether the left, and I would say yes, all of it is sequential because there are no branching, there are no loops. So yes. Output statement, yes, there is an output statement, so we might not see the word output, but an alternative to the word output is actually display. So yes, there is a output statement. All right, and output statement is display. All right.